So, hello and welcome to Badass Woman of Hearthstone. We are in the final day of our NA bracket, and I'm joined by the wonderful TrigOrTreat today to get this first matchup. How are you doing?
Hi, Incardia, and everyone. I'm fine. Excited to cast this match between Pathra and futureshock tonight.
Yeah, it's tonight for us
Yeah,
because we are both from EU, but actually we're pretty early in the morning in the NA, so everybody's watching from there. Good morning to you, and yeah, we'll be going to our first game shortly, which will be the winners match from yesterday. So Patra's going up against Future Shock here, and we saw plenty of both of them on yesterday's stream. How did you feel about their lineups, and how do you think they will go up against each other?
yeah, we saw some interesting games yesterday. I didn't watch all of it live because it's like the middle of the night for me at the end, but I watched the VODs this morning and some interesting things indeed. Patra reverse sweeping with a Mechatoon Warlock. I still
Yeah,
don't know how she
really
managed to win all
serious.
those games.
Yeah, I think if you're really good at playing these kinds of decks, you know what to look for, and she really did quite well, especially if you look at the normal numbers. But yeah, we've had a really long match yesterday, which we won't see in this matchup. We don't have any warrior coming up from Future Shock's side, but it will be quite interesting. And we just got the bans for both of them. Future Shock's banning the Odd Paladin Petra brought yesterday, and Petra, on the other hand, banned the mid range Beast Hunter for Future Shock. How do you think about these bans in particular?
Yeah, I think that mid-range hunter ban could be expected. That deck was favored against most of Petra's decks,
Yeah,
I believe. So that seems reasonable. And I think then the Paladin ban is also probably good. Petra seems now to be a bit favored with her hunter deck. She has some good matchups there.
yeah,
But also a very bad one against the Odd Paladin, so she'll have to make sure not to queue that.
yeah. What do you think they'll be queuing in first? We're just waiting for them to queue their matchups, so it won't be that long to see. But thinking about the matchups in general, what do you think is the most not obvious play, but the most sufficient one for Petra to go first?
Yeah, so I think she will probably not start with her hunter just to make sure she doesn't queue it into the Odd Paladin. Um, but I don't know between the Clone Priest and the Mechatoon Warlock what she would choose. They both would seem reasonable to start with,
Yeah,
although maybe the Priest might be a little bit better because you don't want to queue the Warlock into the Druid. But we'll see shortly.
yeah, we're about to head into the game, and we'll see the Paladin for Future Shock. And as you'd expected, we'll have the Cloning Priest for Petra.
Yeah, that should be a pretty even matchup. So that's an interesting game to start with, I think. You can then start the process of counter queuing for whoever loses out on the first game.
Yeah, and seeing both hands seems like a pretty good start for Future Shock. Two one drops and the Frost Wolf to have this flooded board get to a great start. And on the other hand, I don't think Patras likes the Maligos she had in her hand at the moment.
No, that's not a card that you want to draw. You want to pull that off your cloning gallery or another way get it cheaper. You
Yeah,
don't want to pay the full 9 mana for that.
but she's still having her Velen, I think, so these cards won't be useless at all. But she's not really off to a good start here because, yeah, I mean, this kind of priest lives with the late game, but there is so much late game stuff in her hand at the moment.
Yeah, and the paladin is of course completely the opposite. They very aggressive, and you do need to have the tools to deal with that. Otherwise, you'll just be dead before you can play your late game cards. So
Yeah,
Future Shock seems to be in a good spot here with this cards that she drew, or compared to Petra's hand, using some max in her deck to have some nice synergy there. And she is also playing a Witch's Cauldron in this Paladin, so she can also get some late game value there with some interesting shaman spells.
yeah. She's actually playing two of them in her deck and a divine favor, which we see in hand. So a lot of
Yeah,
card draw for Future Shock here.
yeah, and especially against the priest who will most likely have quite a few cards in hand at some point, and divine favor could come in handy. You can go and play very aggressive now, and then you can have your refill later on.
Yeah. And this board looks not that scary because they are all just one ones, but it's a pretty wide one. And looking at Petra's hand, there's nothing really to take care of this in this early spot of the game.
There is a
If you
spirit
don't,
lash.
if you don't overlook the Spirit Lash, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and the downside of Future Shock's board at the moment is that she's now played 7 minions. So if Petra decides not to do anything about them, she would not be able to play anything on her side either.
Yeah,
And be stuck with those 1/1s. So Petra does decide to clear up this first board, and now Future Shock can start building again. Witch's Cauldron still comes out, so if Petra now starts cleaning up minions, yeah, she'll at least get some more value of them.
yeah, and this mass hysteria seems kind of interesting. Or would you go for another psychic scream here?
Yeah, the Mass Hysteria I don't think does very much at the moment with this specific board. And she already has one Psychic Scream in hand, and could maybe also think about the Shadow Vision so that she could actually start building a bit of a board of her own to contest. She does go for the Mass Hysteria, but then holds it because it's not very useful at the moment.
Yeah, but speaking of Odd Paladin, you are pretty sure that you'll get another pretty big board soon. So mass hysteria or any kind of removal seems great in this case.
Yeah, that's true. You can never have enough board clears against the Paladin, but on the other hand, they will keep building a new board every time you clear it, so you will need to start doing something yourself at some point as well, I think.
Yeah,
Now we see the first Psychic Scream coming out and putting some of those 1/1s back in the deck. It's of course not that great for Future Shocks. For Future Shock, you should already top decking the first one. The good thing is with all those small minions, you can play them quickly and empty your hand, and then that Divine Favor can get you some more interesting cards from your deck.
Yeah. We're seeing the cauldron again here, and you don't have that much to play here, I think. Just the hero power to fill up the board again.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. The sport's not threatening at all for Pathra, so she finds the time to play that first Shadow Essence. And Lich King is a nice 5/5 to get, generating some extra values and some nice spells. Do you know which one this is? The 2 mana one?
I think it's Death Grip.
Yeah, I think so too.
I haven't seen it completely, but it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Death Grip.
I'm not sure that is something she will want to play because, well, she might want to take
Maybe.
some minions out of Future Shock decks, but might then decide not to play them herself, not to mess up her resurrection pool.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea. And of course, 2 mana, and you'll be buffing up your both of your spell stones in hand.
Yeah, and of course,
Which,
if you take out like a Leroy or something from Future Shock's deck, that's always a nice thing to pick up. But you could also be stuck with a Baku.
yeah,
The
or just a 1/1 silver hand recruit.
Yeah, but then whenever you need to get some room in your hand and you have the 2 mana to spare, then you can decide to play it without
Yeah,
too much negative consequences.
Gargoyle
Yeah.
will help to get to her endgame plans.
Yeah, she's getting close to actually just playing that Malagos. And
Hoping it dies so she can resurrect it.
yeah, since no spells have yet been generated from the Witch's Cauldron, there is nothing that Future Shock can do to the Malagos other than just be able to kill it. So
Yeah,
once, of course, that Witch's Cauldron starts generating some spells, then you're going to have to be afraid of things like Hex.
yeah,
But for
or
now, it should be safe.
this Tarum can get rid of the Malygos most likely if it's played, but then you have it in the resurrection pool, so for Patra it's not really a bad situation.
No, I don't think you mind the Malagos dying as long as it's not hexed or polymorphed or anything. You should be fine. Future Shock manages to build up another import again. It does need to be dealt with again at some point, but Petra still had quite a nice health total, so she's safe for now. Considering to resurrect some minions.
Yeah, to have an 8/8 on the board to just get rid of this threat of an 8/8 you have in the Frost Wolf.
Yeah, and with the Radiant Elemental discounting her spell, she can also draw some more cards to get another board clearer from her deck. She does
And
decide
she
to.
steals Leroy.
Yes, indeed.
That's really a great pickup for Patra here.
Yeah,
And
that's the best thing she could have gotten.
and actually that's a card you don't even mind to get killed because, well, having a 6/2 charger in your resurrection pool really doesn't hurt that much. And picking up the death and decay here from the Lich King is also pretty great to deal with another wave of board that might be ahead from Future Shock's side.
Yes, definitely. I think Future Shock was is thinking now about that Witch's Cauldron. She can trade off some minions and see if she can get, for example, one of those hexes to deal with a possible Malagos or Velen uh, to prevent Pathra from completing a full combo.
Yeah,
Of course, that Lich King is something you do want to get rid of.
you really don't want it to stick 2 or 3 turns or something.
Reporting for duty. Belongs to the Titan.
Deciding to go for the Terran here, which gets her a nice bunch of face damage.
Yeah, she's built a pretty impressive board now, and she's threatening lethal, so Petra will need to have a board clear available. Now, we know that she picked up the Dead and Decay, and that she can easily deal with all these 3/3s, but of course, Future Shock doesn't know that that is in hand.
Yeah, and I think at this point,
I
she's
wonder.
just going for, well, if you have one, then you have to use it now. Otherwise, I'm pretty much gonna kill you next turn.
Yes, that's definitely what she's saying with this play. There's a clear threat for lethal. Of course, Petra can have other board clears as well. She still has a
She has another Psychic Scream, and Future Shock knows that the Mass Hysteria was off of the Shadow Visions, so
yeah. She could have another one of that as well. I'm actually gonna see the Malagos come out.
yeah, using the coins of the Gargoyle to get rid of everything.
Yeah, where she clears the Tarim as well. And now there is a Malagos that needs to be dealt with, and no board to do anything with. So
Yeah,
that's
and Future Shock is at 15 health, which is pretty scary because she knows that there's a Leroy in hand for Petra.
yeah. And then with the Malagos and just one burn card, that is already lethal.
Yeah,
Um, the only thing she
but
can do is hope that there is no burn in hand, and then she can live another turn.
yeah, but
But
she really doesn't have a good way to deal with
Reporting
this.
for duty. Reporting for duty.
Just filling up the board
Reporting for
here, but
duty.
this will be the first game for Petra.
yeah, yeah. Future Shock just sets it up that if the burn isn't in hand, that she's threatening lethal again for next turn. But the burn is there with one Mind Blast, and indeed, Patra takes the first game.
Yep. So we'll have Petra on her cloning priest again, and looking at the other matchups, would you go for the Malygos Druid or the Odd Mage in this case?
I think the Malagos Druid probably has a better chance against the Clown Priest. I think actually the Odd Mage is pretty unfavored in all the matchups, according
Yeah,
to the HS replay stats that I looked up.
yeah,
So I would think the Melee Druid would probably come out here, and it's gonna be tough for Future Shock now that she didn't make it with this Paladin deck to get the wins, I think. But she
yeah,
may very
and
well surprise us, and it's even an 80-20 matchup is won by the unfavored deck 2 out of 10 times. So
yeah, and I think we'll see some long game coming up. If we're predicting right, and we'll see the Malygos Druid, this might take its time, but thinking about the match we saw, I was just starting to think about it, but let's jump into the next match where Future Shock's choosing to go with her Odd Mage, which is pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
it's of course she might feel very different about this matchup. I don't know. Then she might have played it much more and know some clever way to deal with this clone priest. Um, and of course, the clone priest, it is a deck that high rolls sometimes, but if it doesn't draw the right cards, then it can also just be way too slow to deal with this faster mage deck.
Yeah, and Future Shock's playing plenty of secrets as well. So there's just this one counter spell we see her drawing right now. But maybe in the later turns, this helps to set up some shenanigans with the Xerix or even a Psychic Scream or something like that.
Yeah, and that could very well be if she plays that counterspell at the right time. Could be very useful. On the other hand, Petra does also have those gilded gargoyles and will often have a lot of coins in her hand. So, of course, a great way to trigger the counterspell.
If she manages to get one of them out on the board early, that will definitely be an interesting situation. I'm spying at this little flame throwing goblin, daring flame eater. Thanks, but does it really do what you want at this point? I mean, it kills the elemental,
Welcome to
pretty
this job.
sure.
Yeah, you do want that off the board, of course, and it's nice to get those hero powers in to upgrade the Janalai, the Dragonhawk, to make sure that it will summon your Ragnaros. And it also just provides you with another minion on board now that you can use. There wasn't really any other things to do. You don't really want to play the Kirin Tor Mage in the counterspell at this time because you probably want to save that for indeed a turn 7 when you're expecting a Psychic Scream, or maybe to prevent the cloning gallery.
Yeah, and seeing this gargoyle now for Future Shock must it's not bad because Petra will at least have to waste a coin at some point, but on the other hand, it's just a coin, so I think for Future Shock it would have been pretty nice if that stayed off of the board much longer, and Petra can just think about Lyra here and maybe finding something with the coin.
Yeah, well, she decides to put the lyre out but not use the coin. I think also keeping in mind that possible counterspell from Future Shock later on that she wants to test for with that coin.
Yeah,
Um,
we're playing open deck lists at least, so she knows that there is a counter spell in Future Shock's deck.
yes, she does indeed know that. And now that lyra, of course, is a high priority target for Future Shock to deal with. You don't let that live if there's any way around it.
You can just shoot it 5 times, I think.
Yeah, that works. And going to put the counterspell out now, preventing a coin into Psychic Scream or a coin into Spellstone.
Yeah, turn 6 normally isn't the one you want your opponent to start getting rid of your board.
No, unfortunately, there is also Mass Hysteria, and that is only 5 mana, so that can still be played. And clears up almost all of the board. That's not a great hand, I think, for Future Shock at the moment.
Now she's running out of gas a bit here, because these secret keepers, they are great in the early boards if you can manage to put a secret or two down, but they are just 1/2s at the moment.
Yes, and no secrets to buff them up, indeed. So just gonna put a few things out and maybe try and bait out some more removal just by building a wider board. Pathra is only at 13 health at the moment, so
Yeah,
she cannot let
that's
these minions just stay for too long. There is, of course, quite a lot of burn in this mage deck as well. And she has some Spirit Lashes in hand that deal with this quite nicely and heal her back up a bit. So still not looking too great for Future Shock, I think.
yeah. And she's just running out of cards at the moment. In Petra's strong turns to come. She has a nice pickup with this Lich King.
Yeah, immediately decides to play it. Could have, of course, also thought about playing the Shadow Essence if you thought that might give it more interesting menu, but a Lich King is never a bad idea, and especially with a secret up, you know the one counterspell was already played, so it had to be Explosive Runes. At least this way you're not taking any damage of that.
Yeah, and you're getting a card out of it, which is not really great for Patra's deck, but she can just leave it in hand for the next couple of turns because she has Shadow Visions and Shadow Essence as well. Maybe even thinking about Psychic Scream here because Future Shock doesn't have that much going for her at the moment, and just one card in her hand really doesn't feel that great.
No, that is indeed was a great turn for the Psychic Scream for Patra, and Secret Keeper is not a great top deck for Future Shock. So she's falling really far behind now with the Spellstone coming out and mana left to get some value out of the Lyra. This is looking like Patra might be taking the second game as well.
This seems like it's pretty much done. I mean, there is a Janalaya, there is a Leroy in Future Shock's decks, as well as two Clockwork Automaton, but they won't really do anything at this point when you have to deal with an 8/28 Lich King.
Yes, and Future Shock also sees that this is not gonna work and decides to concede,
Yeah.
putting her 2-0 behind. And we will now then see that Clone Priest versus the Mali Druid, because
Yeah.
that's the final deck that Future Shock has left.
And Mali Druid is, of course, able to reverse sweep here for Future Shock, so it's not over. But it has to do some pretty hard work to get
My
there.
beloved Tyrande.
Yes, of course, it's never over until the last game is played. And this should be a matchup where she definitely has a really good chance of winning. It's should be pretty even, I think.
Yeah,
A little bit more worried for her if after this she will have to defeat the Dead Rattle Hunter. But
that's
we
it
never
will
know.
be difficult. Yeah, and but she has so much armor gain in her deck that she might just be able to get even past the mark for the OTK version, because we're seeing Zerik's cloning gallery in hand for Pathra, which is obviously not a great start, but it's the card that is building this whole deck in this at this
Yeah,
point.
it's not a great card to have in your opening hand, but better that 9-drop than your Malagos, I would think.
Yeah, it will most likely, if you don't draw really badly, draw you a Malygos. So
Yeah,
I take the spell.
yes, indeed. You get the Malagos for free. It's much better value. Future Shot's opening hand, I don't think it looks that great with the Alex Straza and the Malfurin already there. Well, you're not quite ready to play those yet. Um, drawing some
Yeah,
extra cards now.
having both Moonfires in hand, not that bad, but at this state, you really want to see the other cards and the removals, maybe even for these gargoyles.
Yeah, you wanna see the removals or your ramp cards like your Twig and your Wild Growth,
Yeah, and
so that you
your
can
armor
get.
gain.
Yeah, you want to get to that power turns faster, and no armor gain is also, of course, not that great because you want to build up that armor as high as possible to prevent Patra from being able to OTK you simply by being out of range.
Yeah,
This is very interesting. Patra decides to mass hysteria on only her own minions on board just to get those coins.
yeah.
So
So
that,
she will be able to play the Xerix next turn.
yes, and that must be something that Future Shock realizes as well. There's no real other reason to play that card right now and get those extra coins than having your 9 mana spell in hand.
Yeah, and Future Shock really can't do anything about it at the moment. There's no armor gain in hand, and she could do some damage, but even developing the Tyrant here just feels bad.
Yeah, it does feel bad, but it really was the only play that she had available.
Yeah,
And well, we're quite likely seeing that cloning gallery come out now. Um,
and it might just be lethal at this point. I think there are both Radiant Elementals in the deck, and we saw Petra picking up a Mind Blast, if I'm seeing this correctly, from the Shadow Visions.
yes, there does seem to be a Mind Blast. I don't know how much
There
damage
is
that would be
a
off the top of
Holy
my head, but
Smite.
there's a Holy Smite as well, so it might be a very, very short game.
Yeah,
And if not, she also has the Spellstone in hand, which should be upgrading quite nice. 20 damage of the Mind
20
Blast. This
damage
should
from
be
the Mind
lethal.
Blast, and 14 from the Holy Smite, so Petra's cloning priest killing this whole series pretty quickly.
Yeah, that was one of
And
the fastest games we've seen this weekend, I think.
yeah, and definitely the one we've expected to be this fast. um, so Petra's going to the finals, and Future Shock is not out of the competition yet, because she'll be facing the winner of our upcoming streamed match, which will be, I think,
Teeps versus Slissa.
Teams versus Slissa. Yeah, that's pretty high names for the losers bracket, and Future Shock will be facing off one of these wonderful ladies. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this complete series?
Yeah, it was a very fast series in the end with just the clone priest sweep. It seems like it is quite a strong deck, but it can sometimes low roll a bit if you don't get the draws. But Petra's, or you actually get the wrong draws, you draw your Malagos. But Petra,
Even that one wasn't that bad in the end.
yeah, even that one went fine. It was a pretty good matchup, I think, for the decks the Future Shock had. And yeah, I think it's nice for Petra to have a short match instead of that incredibly long one yesterday, after which she immediately had to play another 3-2 game again. So now she gets actually some time in between the games.
Yeah, and she'll be waiting for her opponent in the finals. And we are going to change the production side a bit, and we'll be going offline after we are finished here. But everybody should just stay, I think, because the next match that's about to go down is Slissa versus Teeps in the lower bracket, competing for the spot to play against futureshock. So this will definitely be a great one to watch as well.
Yeah, we have some big names in these final games for the NA bracket.
Yeah, I think we had really great games overall in the whole tournament, even though we had a pretty packed top 8 with all these great women from NA, and last week the EU finals as well. And
yeah, it's been a great tournament overall, I think, for everyone who participated.
Yeah, and it's coming to an end. 2 months, I think, of playing with everyone, just having so many great games, having so much time spent on stream, and with the other badass women of Hearthstone. We will be closing off this today with at least 3 matches coming up next. And I think if there's anything from your side, Trig, we can shut this one down, and I would just recommend the whole chat to spam all your emotes you have while waiting for the next game to come up.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice for everyone. Hang in there for a little while until we can get the next game started and have some fun in chat together.
Yeah.
And then that will be it for us, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. We will be handing this over to Kat and Wicked Good for the next game, and we'll see you in chat then.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.